Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Acid Head's Smark Talk. This episode is about what makes a great wrestler. Why does there have to be just one thing? Some would say, a lot of those in the wrestling business itself would say it's whoever makes the most money is the best wrestler. Because that's what they're there to do, is to put on a show and make money. But you see, that's what they forget, is that they're there to put on a show and make money. And just because somebody is making a lot of money doesn't necessarily make them the best. Because then you have to say that Michael Bay is the best movie maker, just because he makes a lot of money. You know, that's perhaps the least pretentious point of view on any industry, is whoever makes the most money is the best at it. But I think that that's far too simplistic, narrow-minded, and lacking in soul, heart, or thought. There's more to life than money. And you know what? To my mind, in the end, money doesn't fucking matter that much. I don't know who made the most money of all the classical composers, but I know that the ones who are the most famous still to this day are that way because they were very good at what they did. They put themselves into what they did, and what they did was magnificent. The same goes for bands. You know, who is considered the greatest bluesman of all time? Robert Johnson. Stabbed to death in a fucking bar fight, penniless, basically. Hardly ever made any money. Why is he considered the best? Because he was such an impact on the art form. It was him in that music. I mean, he did things with his guitar nobody else had ever done before. And those songs, he only ever did like 2 albums worth of songs, and we're talking old day albums with, you know, only like, I mean, I forget the number, but it's only like 13 or 14 songs that he made and recorded. And if you listen to them today, they still have every bit of impact as they did then. So, what makes a great pro wrestler? Well, from my point of view, since there are elements of storytelling, performance art, stagecraft in pro wrestling, a great pro wrestler is someone who cares, ultimately. You know, it's the guys that care about putting on a great show. It's the ones that are willing to go out there in front of 50 people or 50,000 people and work their ass off the same to put on a show because they love what they do. You know, at the core of the issue, I think that's why I hate guys like Goldberg and Brock Lesnar and even Nash and Hogan in some ways, is because they don't really care about pro wrestling. You know, Nash and Hogan cared more about their own popularity than pro wrestling. Goldberg and Brock Lesnar, to them, it's just a paycheck. You know, it's just... But somebody like Ric Flair, he might have his downside. He might be a prick at times, or all the time, but I don't know about that. But at least I've always gotten the feeling from Ric Flair that he does give a fuck. You know, I've always felt about Ric Flair, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I feel like if he saw a young rookie in a locker room that desperately needed a perk up before going out in front of a crowd, he would probably be one of the guys that would actually go over and give him a little pep talk and maybe tell him some stories about when he was first starting out, to get the guy, to try and get some of the cobweb or the butterflies out of his stomach. Maybe I'm completely wrong about it. Maybe he is a complete prick, for all I know. I don't know for certain. I've never met him. But just watching him, and I've always felt like if he saw somebody that needed that, he'd probably do it. If somebody needed him to lose the title belt, he would not only lose, he would make that guy look like $1,000,000 fucking bucks. And he wouldn't steal the spotlight and make it about himself. He would make sure that the new champ came away looking like a fucking champion. Because that makes him look good too in the end. How good are you, kayfabe wise, within the internal logic of pro wrestling and the suspension of disbelief, how good are you as a performer in pro wrestling if the guy you just beat is a schmuck? You just got beat by a schmuck. That makes you even more of a schmuck. Jerkwad, whatever term you want to use. A schmuck popped into my head, so I started using it. I don't use that all the time, but it seemed like a good term or word to use. The point stands, and that's one of the reasons. I'll talk about Hogan and Nash in another episode. I've already got that written down as a talking point. This one is about what makes a great pro wrestler, and to me, at the core of it, I think it is just caring and realizing that it's not about you. Ultimately, it's about the show you're putting on. It's about the fans. They're the ones that pay for the fucking tickets that keep you eating, or pay-per-view buys, or, whatever, however you're getting paid as a pro wrestler. It's the fucking fans that make sure you get that money, ultimately. Because if the fans stop coming, you're gonna get fired, and you're not gonna be fucking eating. So if you're not doing your best to put on a show for the fans, and you don't care about what you're doing, then you're not a great pro wrestler. Now, then you can break or go further into it than that, of course. Beyond just giving a fuck. Who's a better wrestler? Bret Hart or Shawn Michaels? Steve Austin or Ric Flair? The Rock, Mick Foley? Lance Storm or Undertaker? It depends on the situation. What is it that the audience wants to see? I like all those guys for different reasons. The Undertaker could sure as hell put on a great match when he needed to. Any of them could. Because it isn't about how many moves you do, it's about the passion you do them with, and it's about the story you tell with those moves. Sometimes I'm in a mood for watching somebody like Lance Storm. A match, Lance Storm up against Rob Van Dam on the first ECW pay-per-view, I'd say positive 3.5 star match. If you want to use a rating system, I don't like rating systems for anything because it's completely arbitrary. Some might say it's a 1 match, some might say it's 5. It means nothing. But in terms of just a great pro wrestling match, what they're doing in the ring, they're telling a story, there's lots of action, it's got technical and hardcore moments, there's ebb and flow, give and take, it's a good wrestling match. And at the same time, you watch something old school that's a bit more rest-hold, a bit slower, that's good too. You watch something Lucha Libre style, that lots of action, moving around, maybe not the best psychology in the world, but lots of action, that's good too. What's bad is trying to watch somebody who doesn't give a fuck going through the paces because they don't give a fuck and they just want to get a payday. I'm not going to say Kevin Nash was the worst of all time by any stretch of the imagination. He had his moments. But it's just, in WCW, so often you could just tell by watching that he didn't care. He was getting paid no matter what. He didn't fucking care. And the ego involved there. Like I said, I'll talk about Nash and Hogan in another one. I don't want to get off on a rant and end up doing 2 episodes in one when I'm trying to keep these at around 12 to 16 minutes or so. 10 to 16 minutes. So, there's no such thing as a great pro wrestler. Well, I mean, you could make the argument that that's true. There's no such thing as a great pro wrestler. Because saying that, even a guy that didn't get as popular as, say, The Rock, like Lance Storm, saying that Lance Storm is not as good a pro wrestler as The Rock is bullshit, because it depends on what you want to watch. Again, Jerry Lynn never was huge outside of ECW. I still think he's one of the best pro wrestlers I've ever seen, because he fucking cared. He went out there every night and he put on a great show. Maybe he was just never given the spotlight he needed to get over like The Rock did. Maybe he didn't have enough charisma to get over like The Rock did. But saying that Jerry Lynn is not as good a pro wrestler as The Rock, that's bullshit. Or vice versa even. Because The Rock may not have had the move set and, the energy levels at times. He was very energetic and high impact. Maybe he didn't have the technical pro wrestling attributes of Jerry Lynn or Lance Storm, but he was very entertaining. And he's also a guy that I'm pretty sure, in fact, I know for a fact that he was always willing to give the rub to somebody else. We saw it several times in WWE. He would come back from doing a movie or something and be in matches with undercard guys, and if not putting him over as much as he possibly could have, which I'm sure was a back-of-house decision, not his, he would have done anything he could to make those guys look good, because making them look good makes him look good. If I just happened to stumble across the match, it was The Rock vs. Lance Storm. I have no doubt in my mind that if Lance Storm was going to be given a clean win that night, I don't think The Rock would have minded at all. Maybe the fans would say, well, why should Lance Storm beat The Rock? Why shouldn't he? Is the real question. He had a gimmick that was working for him with the whole Mr. Serious thing. He could definitely perform in the ring. He and Rock could have had a great match. It wasn't bad what they did, but it could have been a lot better. Purely from a pro wrestling match, fan of what they do in the ring, the storytelling in the ring, and the action and excitement and all that in the ring, they could have had a really good match together. And I'm sure The Rock would have been fine with that. It may have been a little bit odd for him to lose to Lance Storm cleanly, but it's all in how you tell the damn story. So, saying that one pro wrestler is actually better than another based purely on terms of popularity is bullshit, because there's too many factors involved with who becomes popular and stays popular. The promotion itself, the booking itself, has too much to do with who's popular and stays popular. Saying that it would have been dumb for Lance Storm to beat The Rock is stupid, because it's all in how the story is told. If they had the storytelling tight on that match and had Lance Storm go over clean, there would have been no problem with it. As it is, what did you end up with in that match? You didn't have Lance Storm winning cleanly because for some reason they think that would make The Rock look bad. Somehow. Instead, you get this stupid screw job scenario that we've had constantly in the WWE forever, and in pro wrestling in general, because for some reason, with a top name, it always seems to come down, if they're going up against a low card guy, and the low card guy is supposed to win the match for some reason, it always has to come down to a screw job somehow, or a disqualification. Nobody ever fucking wins clean if it's a lower card guy beating a higher card guy, because for some reason they think the higher card guy should seem invincible. I don't know why. Even the best boxers and sports teams lose occasionally to a team that on paper should never be able to beat them. So I don't know why in pro wrestling they want to have this Superman syndrome, or not syndrome, but well, maybe this, just this view of the top guys that they should never lose to anybody that they consider beneath them. That's what I loved about ECW. You always felt like anybody could win in ECW. Because, it didn't have that level of kind of pretentiousness to, who was where on the card at any given time. If you saw, Tommy Dreamer, perfect example. He spent most of his career losing. So did Jake the Snake Roberts. So did Raven, for that matter, in different promotions. And yet, all three of those guys, within their fan bases, extremely liked. Maybe, some people love them just because they love their passion for it. And does Tommy Dreamer look bad when he loses? No. In fact, the more he loses, the more people like him, because it fits. It works with him. And when he wins, people love that too, because they like to see the guy that they like win. They may not like him to see him win all the time, but then, it's the guy who could. The guy who on paper seems to never win, when he does win, it's a special moment. And Jake the Snake lost to everybody. He was one of the dudes that people had to beat in order to get to Hogan, and he was comfortable with that spot. He liked having that spot, because it meant he kept his job as long as he wasn't fucking up his life. Jake the Snake lost to everybody. Everybody was still terrified of the dude. Why? Because of the story. It was good booking. Jake the Snake, great ring psychology, always made the matches look like he could have won. He didn't, but he could have. So, the whole concept of there being one wrestler that's way better than another based on any individual criteria is bullshit. It all depends on what you as the fan want to watch at any given time, who the bookers are pushing at any given time, so on and so forth. Going back to the territory days, they knew their audience. They knew who was going to be, the biggest guys and who had the best chance to get over. If you go to Canada, in Japan, guys like Jerry Lynn and Lance Storm, very popular there, because they have a very different opinion and view of pro wrestling. They are very enamored, and, I kind of have that Japanese viewpoint myself. They like what they do in the ring. The ring is where the important stuff happens. The match is the important thing, and putting on the best match possible is the important thing. And you can do that lots of different ways. You can be a Mick Foley or a Rock and be very limited in a move set, but work that move set for all it's worth, and really, make it yours. It's all about the style, with that sort of working, and that works. Or you can be a guy that has lots of different moves and does lots of different things and puts on really interesting, dynamic matches, and that works too. It's all, it all depends. There is no one thing that makes somebody a great pro wrestler, and as far as who the greatest pro wrestlers are, you can only name names based on popularity, and then you have to look back at all these other guys and you say, why didn't they ever get as popular? Is it because they didn't have the capacity to become popular, or is it because they never had the opportunity that some of the more over guys got? You can't say for certain. So thanks for watching. This one's running kind of long. Sorry for that. I will give my regular warning to the trolls that if you troll me, I will troll you right back. Does not bother me at all. Leave a comment with your suggestion for topics for me to go over. You can, of course, reply to my opinion on this particular topic. I prefer to discuss and have discourse with people who have a valid opinion that they back up, rather than just spouting off bullshit without backing it up. If you're going to say something to me, back it up. If you agree with me and want to say something, that's fine. That's always welcome, of course. It's always nice to know that somebody agrees with you. But again, if you have a negative opinion, then you disagree with me, try to be a little more eloquent than just, you're a fucking idiot, okay? And of course, I know now that I've said that, I'm going to get tons of comments of people just saying, you're a fucking idiot. Because that's how YouTube works. Oh well. Vote the video if you like. Up or down, doesn't matter. Does not hurt my ratings either way. In fact, either way it helps, because it means people are watching the video. Leave your comments, of course, as I've said. Subscribe if you would like to get updates on more videos like these, as well as the myriad of other subject matter that I am interested in, because I am a lump it all into one channel kind of guy. And share the video on your wrestling forums you use. Share it with your friends who are also interested in pro wrestling. And if you are a Smark, thumbs up to you. If you're a smart Smark, a good Smark, not a smarmy Smark, or an asshole Smark. Or a spoiler Smark. You know, if you're a bad Smark, thumbs down, stop being an asshole. If you're a good Smark, keep the faith. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later. See you on the next one. Bye.